It was a treat, you know. I mean, I just felt like it was a gift every day.
Every day, I share another story from the Golden Age and the moments that shaped an unforgettable era. If you'd like to keep these memories alive with me, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it means a lot. Thank you for being here. Now let's begin. What happens when a legend finally decides to drop the curtain and speak his truth out loud? When the old Hollywood glow fades for a moment and the real man, the one behind that famous mustache, steps into the open with no fear at all. At 81, Sam Elliott leans back in his worn leather chair, that deep thunder-rolling voice vibrating through the room, and for the first time in decades, he's ready to speak names. Not of the roles that made him iconic, but of the women who left fingerprints on his life. Not the characters who shaped pop culture, but the women who shaped him. 7 actresses who shared far more than camera angles with the cowboy the world couldn't stop talking about. The interviewer inches forward, almost scared to break the moment. Sam's eyes, still sharp like a hawk, still carrying that mischievous flicker, lock onto him with this calm, dangerous charm that hasn't faded one bit. It's the same look that made people fall for him in Tombstone, The Big Lebowski, A Star is Born. That quiet heat that told you everything while he barely said a word. But this time, it's different. This isn't about lines or lenses. This is about the man people never saw, the life he lived after the cameras shut down, and the late nights when Hollywood felt a lot smaller and a lot more real. Sam takes a slow sip of whiskey, steady, savoring it, while that legendary mustache twitches like it's holding a secret he's finally ready to let out. The whole room goes still, except for the whisper of wind sliding through the trees outside his Malibu place, because this is the moment fans have been wondering about for half a century. The women who caught the attention of the quietest icon in the game. The actresses who looked past the laid-back drawl and rugged looks and saw the fire underneath. Sam Elliott never chased fame with strategy charts and stage smiles. He wasn't built for red carpet drama or constant headlines. He always played the strong, silent lane, on screen and off. And somehow that silence only pulled more people toward him. Women were drawn in like they felt something electric around him, and some of the most striking, talented actresses of their era found themselves caught in the gravity of a man who didn't even try to shine. He just did. Catherine Ross was the first one whose story with Sam turned into Hollywood legend, though not for the reasons people think. They met while filming The Legacy in 1978, 2 pros just clocking in for the job, nothing dramatic at first. But Sam remembers the exact instant everything shifted, and it wasn't during a fancy dinner or some scripted romance scene. It happened between takes when Catherine stopped at a mirror to fix a loose piece of hair. She noticed his reflection watching her, calm, steady, and she turned, gave him this soft smile. And right there, something sparked between them that had nothing to do with the storyline. The world saw a fairy tale that led to marriage, but they never saw that invisible pull from the very first glance. Catherine wasn't just another Hollywood crush or a quick on-set spark. She became the person who recognized that beneath Sam's rugged cowboy exterior lived a man with surprising gentleness and real depth. Their chemistry wasn't written into the script. It was raw, real, and impossible to ignore. And before Catherine, there were others, women who knew Sam Elliott back when he was still fighting to get noticed, still unsure if that deep rumbling voice and his unmistakable look would ever land him a real place in the industry. These actresses saw something in the tall, mustached guy from Sacramento before the rest of the world realized he was built for legend status. Cybill Shepherd was riding high after the Last Picture Show when she crossed paths with Sam in the mid-70s, and at that time she was basically Hollywood royalty. She had that classic blonde bombshell look, the kind of star who could pick any leading man she wanted without even trying. But something about Sam's calm confidence pulled her in. He wasn't bragging, he wasn't selling himself, he wasn't trying to prove anything. He just stood there in that effortlessly magnetic way he had, letting his presence do all the talking. Their spark turned into a brief but seriously intense affair, tucked far away from gossip writers who were more focused on Cybill's high-profile ties with powerful directors and producers. What drew her towards Sam wasn't fame or connections. He didn't have either back then. It was his authenticity in a town built on illusions, his steady energy in an industry full of smoke and mirrors. Sam drops his voice into that familiar gravelly whisper as he remembers those hidden nights with Cybill. Hotel rooms in quiet towns where they filmed, late-night drives through the desert where the world felt far away. Places where they could simply be 2 people without the weight of Hollywood expectations hanging over them. She showed him that desire didn't always need chaos or drama, that sometimes people just match for a moment, and that moment is enough, even if it doesn't last forever. The third name he shares lands heavier with a pause that says everything. Farrah Fawcett, America's sweetheart. At her peak, she was everywhere. The golden hair, the bright smile, the poster that became a cultural phenomenon. But beyond the public glow was a woman searching for something real, something honest, something deeper than the surface-level romances people kept pinning her to. Sam met Farrah at a charity event in 1979, long before either of them knew where their careers would end up. She was striking in a way that went beyond beauty. There was a softness in her eyes, a quiet longing most people missed because they were busy staring at her superstar glow. Their connection was instant but thick with complications. Farrah was with Lee Majors at the time, and although the tabloids hadn't caught on yet, their relationship was already cracking. Sam, meanwhile, was still building his name, years away from the leading man image people would later attach to him. What Sam and Farrah found together was an escape, a breath of air from the pressure on both sides of fame. Their relationship lasted 6 months, hidden in private spots far from cameras and gossip hunters. Sam remembers her as someone who laughed easily but loved carefully, a woman who understood their connection, lived in a bubble that couldn't survive daylight. When they ended things, it was with mutual respect. They both knew they had given each other exactly what they needed at exactly the right moment. But the name that shocks people the most is Glenn Close. This was long before Fatal Attraction, back when she was known mainly for her stage work. Sharp, disciplined, classically trained. They worked together on a television movie that the world forgot, but they didn't. Because in those few weeks, something rare sparked between them. Glenn wasn't like the other women in Sam's life. She pushed him, really pushed him. She challenged him mentally, made him dig deeper into his craft, and refused to be impressed by charm until he showed he had substance behind it. Their bond wasn't built on glamour or convenience. It was built on sharp conversations, late-night rehearsals, and two artists pushing each other towards something better. Their relationship wasn't just about attraction, it was about two artists sharpening each other in ways nobody else could see, even though the chemistry between them was obvious to anyone on set. Sam's gaze drifts as he remembers those late-night conversations that carried on until sunrise. Glenn's sharp intelligence meeting his calm, thoughtful energy like they'd been speaking the same unspoken language for years. She cut straight through his quiet cowboy front, seeing the depth underneath while he saw the passionate fire hiding behind her polished, disciplined exterior. Their affair didn't last long, but it changed them both, leaving a mark on how they approached their craft and how they understood real connection between two people who weren't supposed to collide, yet couldn't help it. The room grows still as Sam prepares to mention the remaining names, each one packed with its own memories and weight. The man who built a whole career on silence, on understated intensity, is finally peeling it all back. Talking not just about romance, but about how he learned love, desire, and that wild, unpredictable pull two people can feel, even when logic says they should walk the other way. Then comes the fifth name, and Sam says it with the heavy tone of someone remembering a what if that still stings. Cher. She was already a powerhouse when their paths crossed in the early 80s. Someone who could command a room just by stepping into it. But what caught Sam's attention wasn't the fame, the sequins, or her huge presence. It was the rare moments when all the lights faded, and he got to see the softer woman underneath. They met at a Hollywood party Sam didn't even want to attend. He hated the small talk and fake energy, so he slipped out onto the balcony with a beer, staring down at the city lights like they were scattered diamonds. Cher found him out there, not with the bold swagger everyone expected from a music and movie icon, but almost quiet, asking if she could sit with him for a moment away from the chaos. What followed was 3 months of low-key, hidden moments that didn't match the public image of either of them. Sam, the calm cowboy who rarely opened up, got swept up by Cher's honesty about her fears and the pressure she carried, and Cher, the woman who looked fearless on stage, found comfort in Sam's steady presence, the way he listened without interrupting or judging. Their time together moved through secret spots across Los Angeles, late-night drives up the coast where Cher could drop the glamorous persona and just be herself, laughing at Sam's dry comments about Hollywood's craziness. There were hotel suites where she curled against him, whispering doubts about whether anyone could love her real self, not the celebrity version everyone expected. Sam remembers how her guard fell away when it was just the two of them, how her famous voice softened when she told him about growing up feeling different, like she never fit perfectly into any space. With him, she didn't have to perform. She could simply breathe. And in return, she pushed Sam not to hide from the spotlight, telling him he had more star power than he realized, encouraging him to take chances that would help shape the career he eventually built. The end didn't come from lack of love or care, it came from reality. Cher's world demanded constant eyes on her, constant presence, constant shine. Sam, on the other hand, felt more alive in the quiet spaces, out of view. They both knew that if their relationship ever hit the public eye, the pressure would crush it. So they walked away, not because they didn't want each other, but because going public would have destroyed the private world they had built together. The way they parted was gentle but permanent, both of them knowing they had given each other something real, something that would stay long after the physical part faded. Then came Jessica Lange, one of the most unexpected chapters in Sam's story. When they met at a film festival in 1983, she was on top of her game. Tootsie, Frances, all the acclaim, walking with the confidence of a woman who'd already proved she wasn't just another pretty face. But Sam sensed a restless spark under that calm, polished surface, something she didn't show the cameras. Their connection started over a shared frustration with Hollywood, how the industry treated actors like products instead of artists. Jessica was fighting to be recognized as a serious, dramatic actress, while Sam was pushing to break out of those supporting roles people kept sticking him in. They found comfort in each other's honesty, in the quiet truth that even success could feel lonely when it didn't hit the heart the way you hoped. What pulled them closer was their mutual respect for authenticity, in a place overflowing with illusion. Jessica admired Sam's refusal to play by Hollywood's unspoken rules, his calm pride in being himself instead of bending for approval. And Sam admired Jessica's sharp mind and her refusal to trade her artistic integrity for shortcuts to fame. Their relationship lasted 8 months, lived mostly on the road during different film shoots. They would meet in small towns tucked across America, slipping into their own little world between set calls. Sam remembers Jessica as the woman who pushed him deeper into his roles, someone who encouraged him to explore emotional places he had avoided for years. Their spark was strong, but it was their intellectual bond. Those long talks about books, philosophy, and what artists owe the world that tied them together. Jessica saw a depth in Sam that many directors overlooked, and Sam saw in her a commitment to truth that matched his quiet, steady drive. Their breakup wasn't dramatic, it was simply the reality that their careers were pulling them in opposite directions. Jessica was heading into the iconic leading lady phase that would define her legacy, while Sam was finally stepping into the strong, silent on-screen presence people would come to recognize instantly. They stayed friends long after the romance ended, each holding on to the lessons the other had given, about love, about dedication, and about what it meant to stay honest in a world that rewarded the opposite. Then Sam speaks the seventh and final name, the one wrapped in the most mystery, Sissy Spacek. She was already respected as one of the strongest dramatic actresses of her generation when they crossed paths in the mid-'80s. She had this grounded, earthy quality that reminded Sam of where he came from, mixed with a sharp intelligence that sliced through pretense without hesitation. Their meeting wasn't planned, they just happened to attend this same small theater production in Los Angeles, both drawn in by the promise of raw, uncompromising storytelling. After the show, they ended up at the same coffee shop, talking endlessly about the performance with the passion of two people who lived and breathed the craft. What followed became the most complicated relationship Sam ever experienced, not because of the industry or timing or outside pressures, but because of how deeply he felt for her. Their connection grew from something simple into something powerful, a pull that neither of them expected, and both of them struggled to make sense of. Sissy saw straight through his cowboy exterior the moment they met, recognizing the thoughtful, layered man hiding behind that quiet, steady front. Sam, in turn, was completely thrown off by her rare mix of strength and softness, how she could be fierce one second and tender the next without missing a beat. Their connection went far beyond anything physical, even though the attraction between them was strong enough to feel like static in the air. They spent hours walking through Griffith Park, talking about everything, childhood stories, fears they'd never spoken out loud before, even deep conversations about what truth really meant in storytelling. Sissy pushed Sam to challenge the way he saw himself and where he fit in the world, while Sam gave her a sense of calm she hadn't felt in years, especially with the intensity of her career pressing down on her. Their relationship lasted 2 years, the longest affair Sam ever had outside his eventual marriage to Catherine Ross. And it didn't end because the love faded. It ended because the love was too much, too intense, too consuming for two people whose careers demanded so much of them. They made the painful but honest choice to step back before their connection pulled apart everything else they had built individually. Sam's voice drops low as he reaches the end of this confession, the weight of decades settling on him like dust in fading afternoon light. These 7 women didn't just shape his view of desire. They taught him what real connection meant, what it meant to be vulnerable, to open yourself completely to another person even when it scared you. Each woman had shown him something different, about courage, about emotional honesty, about the heavy truth that love isn't always simple or safe. The interviewer leans forward, sensing Sam isn't done, that something heavier is still sitting behind his eyes. The way Sam's weathered hands grip the whiskey glass carries a tension that hints at one more revelation waiting to be spoken. The silence between them stretches like held breath, and when Sam speaks again, his voice shifts, deeper, less certain, like he's stepping into territory he's never allowed himself to revisit out loud. "There's something else," he says. And for the first time in the entire conversation, that legendary confidence wavers. "Something I've never told anyone, not even Catherine." The room goes still. Even the wind outside seems to stop, as if the world itself is listening in. Sam's eyes unfocus, drifting far beyond the interviewer, beyond the room, beyond the present. He's looking back into a different life entirely. 1976, he says quietly. "I was a nobody then, just another tall drink of water, hoping for a break." His voice softens, almost hesitant. "There was this woman, this incredible woman, who could have had any man in Hollywood, and she probably did. But for 3 weeks, she chose me." He pauses, weighing the memory. Back then, the mustache that became iconic was barely there. Just stubble, determination, and a natural charisma he hadn't learned to control yet. Finally, he says her name. Raquel Welch, and that name hangs in the air like smoke rising from a dying campfire. "She was everything I wasn't," he continues. "Sophisticated, worldly, completely comfortable in her own skin in ways I was still figuring out." Sam had been filming some forgettable Western, something nobody remembered. Raquel was between projects, taking meetings, and doing what Raquel Welch did best, commanding attention without even trying. Sam's memory pulls him into a Hollywood that barely exists anymore, a time when stars held real mystique and privacy was actually possible if you knew where to disappear. Raquel wasn't just the icon plastered across posters and magazine covers. She was a woman searching for something real underneath the image that had made her famous, craving authenticity after years of living inside a label she didn't fully control. Their worlds shouldn't have collided, but for 3 unforgettable weeks they did. They crossed paths in a dusty little dive bar in Venice Beach. Not the polished, tourist-packed version people brag about today, but the rough, half-forgotten corner where actors slipped away to fade into the background for a night. She sat alone at the far end of the bar, sunglasses on even though it was close to midnight, giving off this silent warning that she wasn't in the mood for being Raquel Welch to anyone. Sam recognized her instantly, but the way she carried herself said loud and clear that she didn't want to be recognized at all. He ordered a beer and minded his business the way he'd been raised, keeping to his own lane while the room kept sneaking glances her way. But Raquel shocked him by speaking first, leaning in just enough to ask if he had a light for her cigarette. Her voice wasn't anything like the confident tone he'd imagined. It was softer, almost unsure, like someone who'd spent years playing a role and was finally tired of it. Later, she told him she picked him because he was the only guy in that place who didn't stare, didn't try to run game on her, didn't pretend they'd met somewhere before. He just stayed in his own space, chilling like it was no big deal. Apparently, that was exactly what she'd been craving. What happened after that was unlike anything Sam had lived through. Raquel was older, more seasoned, walking with the confidence of someone who'd climbed the whole mountain of fame and realized the view wasn't what she hoped for. But underneath that shine was a loneliness that matched Sam's, a quiet searching that pulled them together even though their lives were worlds apart. Their time together played out in private spots all over Los Angeles. At her place in the hills where she'd cook for him while wearing one of his shirts, moving around the kitchen with this easy grace that completely challenged the public's idea of her. And on those long coastal drives where she'd let her hair fall loose and just be a woman hanging out with a man who actually saw her, not the billboards, not the poster icon, but the person underneath. She was generous, Sam says, his voice turning warm. Not generous with gifts or fancy things, but with her real self. She shared stories she never told interviewers. The tough parts, the trade-offs, the price of becoming an icon before she even understood what that kind of spotlight could take from a person. Sam sets his whiskey glass down and looks straight at the interviewer, then past him into the camera that's been catching every word. Outside, the afternoon light has faded into dusk over his Malibu home, and long shadows stretch across the room as Hollywood's most mysterious cowboy finally lets the truth spill out. "These women," he says, his voice weighed down with decades of living and the quiet humility of someone who's loved deeply and let go gracefully, taught me that desire isn't something you can script or direct. It happens between the lines, in those tiny spaces where two people choose to be real with each other. His mustache twitches with one last hint of a smile. At 81, Sam Elliott looks exactly like who he is, a man who lived fully, loved completely, and somehow found peace by finally speaking his truth. The legend with the slow drawl has opened up, and yet the mystery around him stubbornly refuses to fade.